Hi everybody, welcome to 2023, the YouTube channel that we put together. It's the start of our third year, which is kind of exciting to share with you the joy of gardening, joy of planting, joy of understanding plants, and on and on and on. And in 2023 for me is a special year. It's kind of a personal note, but I can't believe it. I'm going to turn 70 this year. So I don't know how that happened, and I'm sure all of you out there who the years keep going by, you don't know how it happened for any of us. But the one thing, it's fair to everybody, isn't it? So I'm okay with that because none of us can buy our way into immortality. But it's just something that I'm thinking about, and I just wanted to share on this moment with everybody. So anyway, my thought about the first show of 2023, besides the fact I'm an old guy now, is that why am I doing a YouTube channel? I mean, why did I could be watching Andy and Mayberry reruns, I could be taking walks in the Kettle Moraine, but why in the world did I decide to do this YouTube channel? And it dawned on me that I wasn't quite sure why I'm doing this. Because I don't have the answers to a lot of questions that you might have. I have solutions for things I run into, but they're solutions that I create, and understanding how the plants will respond during certain times for years and years, or maybe briefly in moments. But I after going back and forth, I realized for 42 years I've been growing perennials, from seed, from cuttings, from divisions. For 39 years, I've been growing native plants, mostly prairie plants, not as much woodland, wetlands plants, but mostly prairie. Now I'm going more into woodland plants, mostly sedges. So I thought, there's got to be something out of those 42 years that has some value to share with people. And part of that was, it's my experiences doing this. It's things I've done and learned from other people through conversations, and getting to have a lot of good friends who are growing plants and planting plants also. So I thought, why wouldn't I want to share this with all of you? And it doesn't mean I'm right about anything, because questioning is the greatest gift we have. I question everything, myself, others, and then I trial things to see how they work. Then I change things based on the outcome. So anyway, I'm going to read some things I had written down and have a discussion with myself here at Simple. We're back at Simple. This is a beautiful place. I was just here this morning and yesterday morning actually, and had eggs. So anyway, here's some things I wrote down to share my awareness and understanding of plants that I have grown, planted, and cared for. So that's a very simple beginning. Over the 42 years, I've grown a lot of plants. And the energy for me has come from caring for them and understanding how to grow them, how to get them to live good lives in containers until they go into a situation, as far as planting situation. So that simple beginning took me to coming to know that quiet, patience, observation, listening, and continued practice bring about the knowledge of plants. Let me read that again, because that was important to me, especially being patient. Coming to know that quiet patience, it's the quiet patience. It's just not patience amongst a lot of disturbing situations, or watching TV, or listening to radio, or going to rock concerts. It was quiet patience that worked for me. It was actually being out amongst plants, like visiting the Schulenburg Prairie. That helped me have a greater understanding of how to grow plants in that quiet of the prairie. So it was quiet patience, observation, seeing everything, and paying attention and being curious about what I see. Listening and continued practice bring about the knowledge of plants. So that was the second thing I wrote down, and I wanted to, again, share that with you, because you may have a different way of being that caused you to have an awareness of plants. And I think it's important to share that with yourself too, because the one thing I realize, again for myself, it's not about making money. And a lot of people would say, I'm very good at that. I'm very good at not knowing how to make money. But what I have learned basically when I was a kid, my mom said, Roy, there's two options. You have two ways of living. And I was just getting out of high school, going to college, and to me, I didn't see any need to become an adult yet. I still had 4 years of college, so I could enjoy what was left of being a youth. And she said, you got two choices. One, you can go out and make money. And if your whole goal, she said, I still see her, I'm in the back seat of the car. She's turning around talking to me about this. You can work and only worry about making money while you do that. And when you're concerned only about making money, you'll never have enough, and that's the only thing you'll give value to, is that making of money. She said, my recommendation to you is find something you love to do. And if you think and you believe you're good at it, other people might see that too. Get good at what you love to do, love what you do, and earn a living. Earn a living by joyfully doing something every day with your life. And then she said, share that with your family. And I thought, at that time, when you're 17, 18 years old, yeah, okay, Ma, okay. Thank you for all that information. But as I got through college, I realized, what am I going to do my senior year in college? And it was that. It was, I want to find something I love. And I didn't know what it was. And eventually it was plants captured me. And I don't know how plants captured me or caught me. I took care of parks at a park district. I ran a Zamboni on an ice rink. I was a youth counselor, an outdoor education teacher. But there was something that went beyond all those processes, and the plants said, take a look at who we are. Take a look at how we live. Does that fit any of your curiosities, Roy? And it did. It really did in 1978. And what it did, and I wrote this down in my third thing, it was revealing the richness of their nature and the reality of how they can be placed into healthy plant communities that really got me curious. The discovery of prairie. And how do all these plants live in these healthy communities? Not out-competing each other, but living healthy, happily in remnant prairies. How did all that happen, and how can that be recreated? And I realized it cannot be recreated. And that's what the prairie remnants have taught me. You cannot recreate us, but you can understand who we are, and you can always continue working diversity into your plantings. So the last thing I wrote down was, my story gives me joy. I'm pretty happy about it. I'm turning 70. I went on a little bit too much about that at the beginning, but it's a big step for me, being a 70-year-old guy. Because being an old guy, I never dreamed about it. I always thought I'd be this cool young guy and never amount to much, but at least not be an old guy that smokes Kent cigarettes and goes bowling, and nothing wrong with bowling or smoking Kent cigarettes either, but when you're growing up in the 60s, that's what you see. Wear a white shirt and play pinochle the rest of your life, and then complain about everybody in the block on the neighborhood. This guy doesn't know that guy doesn't know this. I didn't want to be that guy. So I hope that doesn't occur when I go into my 70s either. I'm going on and on. Anyway, my story, it gives me joy that I've come to know enough. I've come to know enough to know I don't know anything. Isn't that an amazing thing for me to say? I've come to know enough that I know I don't know anything. There's still so much out there for me to come to understand, to talk with people, to travel, to see things. This year, in 2022, I went to Italy. I've never been to Italy, but I had a wonderful time there. I gave a talk with Austin Eichscheid, Terry Gouen, had a wonderful time with Pete Outhoff, all the folks that were there in Italy, Nigel Dunnett. My wife was able to come with me. But it was the shared knowledge of people. Tony Spencer, who writes a wonderful column about perennial gardening. It's the thing we shared about our conversations within each other's world that was so beautiful. So I'm going to carry this just a little farther and to see what you think about this presenting of YouTube. And how did I become a designer? I have no idea. I really don't. It wasn't my intent to design. I'm still a grower at heart. But my growth as a designer requires constant understanding and thoughtfulness about the distinctions between having an awareness of plants and having knowledge of plants. I mentioned that before in some of my older YouTubes, you might remember. And if I have an awareness of something, like I have an awareness that New York is a big city, but I don't live in New York, so I don't know nothing about New York. I don't know anything about Broadway, I don't know anything about Times Square, I don't have knowledge of New York. I can't tell you where to go, what to see, where the clubs are, where do you catch the Staten Island ferry, but I have an awareness of it. But without knowledge of New York, I couldn't function there. I couldn't guide people and tell them where they should see something. So there's a distinct difference between having awareness of a plant, Echinacea pallida, and having knowledge of Echinacea pallida. And the Echinacea pallida would be the first one to tell you, you don't know who I am. You don't know about my deep penetrating taproot, how I fracture clay soil, how I can live on modest rainfall based on what you believe amounts of water Echinacea purpurea needs compared to me. You don't understand those things. You don't understand that I need a longer moist cold treating period to break dormancy. I need 9 to 12 weeks so I'll germinate, not 6 to 8 weeks like Echinacea purpurea. So these are the things we have to come to know when you're growing plants or when you're planting plants. If you believe that plants, planting, and stewardship and healthy lifestyles are all related, you feel good often about sensing you're only at the beginning of something. I thought, that's again how I feel. All these things I believe I've come to know, especially care and nurturing of plants, I'm only at the beginning of this. This is a big future. When you see so many plantings that are put in the ground, and you see the ribbon cutting with everybody there celebrating and honoring the architect and honoring the people that raised the money and honoring the community for allowing the garden to go in. And in 4 to 5 years, the whole thing declines, falls apart. Because we don't have good stewards. We don't have people with plant knowledge knowing how to care, love, and nurture the plantings as a community. And that's our bright future. It's not about designing. Designing is very important. It puts you in a situation to put the plants together in a healthy way, only hoping that you get good stewards. People can garden it into the future for year after year after year after year. So all we can do together, you and I and everybody out there who has this feeling for understanding plants and planting and understanding all the relationships that they create, all we can do together is keep sharing our experiences. And again, that's why I have a YouTube. I just want to share with you what I'm doing. And keep asking questions. Keep coming to know the plants and awaken to all the beautiful relationships they have lived within, and to understand their own history and to understand their story. To be open, not to think we know everything. Because I'll tell you right now, you don't know anything. Whatever you believe you know is only a step to what you need to know more of. So, this designing with plants, it's an imagination of what we believe to be beautiful. So when you're designing with plants, you're just creating something you believe to be beautiful. Are you understanding, comprehending what does it mean to be healthy? What does it mean to be sharing the joy of the planting you've created with other living things? People get all excited about the insects, the birds, the pollinators, and those are wonderful things to be excited about. But are the plants we're putting in these situations that we believe to be beautiful, do we understand that maybe they're not healthy? It's a struggle for newly planted communities and their dynamic way of being and their dynamic relationship. It's a struggle for them to live into the future because we haven't created a good enough future for them, because we haven't put them in a situation where they can live well together year after year. Those relationships from youth to maturity, and I'm the first one, this finger's going this way. I can tell you all the stories about, that I'm going to get into a little later, we're going to do some more grids, but I still have to question myself all the time. Am I creating the best relationships possible based on the goals and objectives of the site? And the finger always goes this way. I can't blame the people putting it in or anything. So we always have to look, our best practices are best practices, and they're not. But we're getting there. We're moving in a solid direction. So as I scroll up on my Surface computer, because I wrote all this down, as soon as you assure yourself that you can relax, many of your older beliefs will disappear. You just do this. 2 breaths, not 1. You know what? All those ways of being that I thought were true to the nature of gardening don't exist anymore. There's no rules. There's no reason to put wood mulch around. There's no reason to put stakes and tie everything up. There's no reason to deadhead. There's no reason to put everything on 18-inch centers. I need one more breath. There are no rules. Anything you need to know about planting, the plants will tell you. It's about paying attention to who they are, how they've lived, and who they've lived with. So by steadily observing, listening, and acknowledging, it's not just this, it's listening and observing, but then we have to acknowledge that each plant has more to express of itself to you. We have to acknowledge that. That Echinacea pallida wants so much to share so much more with you. Not just that it has a purple flower, grows in modestly dry soil, and is native to mesic prairies. That's not it. That's a good beginning. But again, it's acknowledging. We have to acknowledge all plants have so much more to tell us. And again, that's what I'm continuously moving through. How much more I have to listen and be patient. It's not just throwing plants together and into color patterns or patterns that I enjoy. It's what are they feeling and how are they relating to themselves as they mature. And design for me, it's always an accumulation of choices. Choices that eventually require my work to become one plan, one design. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's, again, all the options, all the acknowledgement I have to give plants for who they are and where they are, how they fit together. I also have to acknowledge that some things aren't going to work. And I have to get all that into one concept for myself. One thought, and I have to come up with one design. It's my personal awareness of what I believe, I know, and love that becomes expressed collectively. So I just threw love into that because I really love what I do. Sometimes the outcomes aren't something I'm proud of, but I know I can change. And I know I can take it in a better direction because I love what I do. And during the entire time I'm putting the design together, this whole time I'm sitting there, and I do it 5 times over and over, and I just don't want to finish so I can, and I don't do that. I'm not artistic with my design. I don't put all kinds of little colors on it. During the entire time I'm putting designs together, I'm processing how the planting will be cared for. That's the thing that I can't, as I've seen so many gardens die, decline, and disappear because no one knew how to care for them. It's like seeing children out there that, parents don't know how to feed them, don't know how to clothe them, don't know where to, they don't understand these intimate relationships with young people. So when I'm thinking about that, I'm processing how the planting will be cared for and for how many years can that process go on. What's the shelf life? What's basically the shelf life of my design? It's like a gallon of milk at a food store. That gallon of milk is only good to that little date stamped on it. So I'm looking at the type of care and nurturing is trainable. So my second part is, who can I train, who can I find to understand how to care at the beginning stage of the garden and determine the planting's future for the next 3 to 4 years based on people that love to care, nurture, and would be good stewards. And as you train them initially, and they work within the planting can mature. At the same time, the people caring for it can mature and follow a higher level of best practices. It's very exciting. So let's see. That's why I do a YouTube show. Now, all of you are totally confused by this whole show. And many of you might have clicked off after you heard I was turning 70. Who wants to listen to an old guy? There's a lot of young people out there with a lot of good ideas. But the most important relationship you're ever going to have, communicate with the plants, understand who they are, acknowledge them for that, and listen to their nature. And your success will keep building, and your questioning will keep going on and on. So thank you for this kind of unusual show to start the year, but it was good for me to understand why I'm pursuing this route. And I appreciate all of you for watching and listening and sharing your thoughts. And the next show or two, we're going to get into some mini grids. We're going to be designing some mini grids with small patterns that can be knitted together to create larger spaces, and then looking at how these plants relate to each other. So I'll see you later. Thanks, everybody.